So I'm going to welcome our two people onto the stage for this. So our first gentleman who will be joining us is a premier Hollywood event planner with over 25 years of experience. He became the unexpected star of the Netflix hit documentary about the ill-fated Fyre Festival, the greatest party that never happened. Ladies and gentlemen, please give an incredible warm round of applause for Andy King!
Thank you, my dear.
Joining Andy and asking the questions is the extraordinary, infamous singer, songwriter, and podcaster, Thomas Siniski. There we go, Thomas Siniski.
Well done. Hello, Andy.
Good afternoon.
I'm assuming everybody knows this guy, because I had to check. But everybody knows this guy. All right. Welcome to Vilnius. How do you like the weather?
It's a little hot, yeah, but it's beautiful.
Where are you from in America?
New York City.
So it's not as hot as here.
No.
But you spend a lot of time on the West Coast, right?
LA, yep. I'm in LA most of the time these days, so it feels like LA here today, for sure.
Assuming everybody knows who Andy is, I want to go back a little bit in history before. Let's talk a little bit about you before Fyre. Who is or what was Andy before Fyre? Can you give us a little bit of your background?
Let's say I've been hosting events for 25 years. I run an event business based in New York City, and predominantly working with large Wall Street firms on large events. 7 years ago, I made a change and decided that I was one of the hosts of the first climate march in New York a few years ago, and we had Beyonce perform in Central Park. We had millions of people fly in from around the world to kind of help with the messaging and drive positive change as far as climate was concerned. After the concert in Central Park, you have never seen so many plastic water bottles and Solo cups on the ground in your life. And so at that point, it became my turning point, and I began a zero-waste event business. And that has been my primary focus the last 6 years, and that's what brought me to Hollywood. And so I do all the events for Leonardo DiCaprio, for Mark Ruffalo. We raised over $12 million for Leonardo DiCaprio in the fall at one party, which is pretty amazing. And so that's sort of my focus today in the event world.
All right. So how did the infamous fraudster Billy McFarlane find you? To essentially save his, startup? Was it a startup? Because Fyre was a much bigger thing than just the festival, right? It was supposed to be some kind of app for booking talents and artists, which was a stupid idea in the first place, because who needs an app for that? You don't book artists every day or every week.
Right.
So I would question that from the business plan perspective. But how did he come across your name? Were you acquaintances before? How did that collaboration happen?
In 1994, I was profiled on the front page of the Wall Street Journal as America's first corporate concierge. And it was a concept that I developed and launched into many large corporations to help companies attract employees and retain them. And so it was a service offered where you could balance your work life and personal life, where you're happier at home and more productive at work, where there was a department to take care of all the shit that you didn't want to do yourself. Billy started a company called Magnesis, which was a black credit card company for 20-somethings coming out of college. And I went on the board of his company and helped him establish relationships with every fine restaurant and every fine hotel chain and every airline. And so all these young kids got these amazing perks. We grew it from 300 members to 15,000. And of course, the irony was that Billy called me. Billy grew up fairly close to where I lived, and I knew his parents. He called to say that he was hosting this music festival and could use some help. And so I said, why not? You know, I think the first sign of something strange should have been that I was in San Francisco hosting the World Cup Pro-Am Ski Championships in Squaw Valley, and he sent a jet to pick me up. Which I learned
a startup company.
A little startup,
sending,
and the
sending
jet was
jet,
about
yeah?
$60,000 to pick me up, to bring me to the Bahamas.
For a day.
For a day, yeah. That should have been concern number one, right? Yeah.
And so, why wasn't it a concern at the time?
Well,
were you drunk? Were you high?
He had
what was
raised a
going
lot
on?
of money. He'd raised a lot of money, and so I thought, well, okay, this is the beginning of something different. And I arrived. Obviously, there were 6 weeks out on a small island in the Bahamas to produce this music festival. And the first thing I said was, you need to change the messaging.
Okay, let's, this is all nice, this is all beautiful, but I'm just curious, I don't buy the fact that that didn't ring a bad bell for you. I think he offered you a good deal that we don't know about. What was the deal with him? What was the deal with him? Because you were not part of the original Fire team. I saw their original investment pitch deck, I think, today. There were many people. First of all, it's very long, but at the end of it, there's a team, there's a lot of people, and you're not part of that team. So you were brought in to save the festival.
Yeah.
What did he offer you? Because that's not in the film, by the way. You hear it first here, if he tells us.
Part of my, when he called me in San Francisco and explained what was going on, he said, first of all, I want to tell you that I've sold Magnesis, which is the black credit card company. And as you know, I paid you in stock. I hosted 52 events for him in 4 years for free. And he said, I'm going to write you a check for $1,700,000.
Did he?
For my stock. No, of course he didn't. No.
So he was So he was kind of blackmailing you. He was saying,
no.
So you've earned 1.7, but
Yeah.
please save my festival, then maybe I will send it across to you.
Well, after I arrived, he said to me, oh, by the way, the buyers for Magnesis are going to sign the deal at the festival. There wasn't a festival, so of course,
Okay, and
there was no deal. I mean, you know.
So you were basically going after your 1.7 million because you had to come up with a solution to the festival because otherwise you wouldn't be paid for Magnesius. Magnesium, Magnesius?
Magnesis, yeah.
Magnesius, okay.
And
All
as
right.
you may all know, the irony of ironies is that I run a zero-waste event business, and we allow no plastic and no paper at any of our events. And I was going to suck the biggest dick in the Bahamas to clear 250,000 Evian plastic water bottles, which is not what I would normally do. Well, as a gay man, I might suck a dick, but I wouldn't do it for plastic water bottles.
I
know, sorry.
That
but
deserves a round of applause. Right. Yeah. Let's just hope that none of you have to go through the same experience. Okay, so you go back, so you go to the Bahamas, whatever the deal was. Let's stop for a moment. Maybe I just want to finish the story about Billy because I think this talk has to be more about you. So let's just cut it here with the last question about him. Looking back and assuming that everybody has seen the documentary, who or what is he in your view now? Is he just a pathological liar? Or was it just a gamble? Was it just a bet that he made and it didn't work out? Because we talked backstage before and I said, you know what? A lot of startups and a lot of millennial startups, they do the same thing. They sell they oversell the expectation of delivery of the product, and then in many cases that doesn't get delivered, it never happens. And in markets like Lithuania, I would actually argue that he could get away with all this shit. In America, he didn't, because you have class action lawsuits and stuff like that. But what is your personal view these days? Was he just unlucky, or is he just a pathological liar, a sociopath, and all the other bad words, borderline, diagnoses that other people, mentioned in the documentary? What is your personal view? Like, honest personal view.
Billy to me is a serial entrepreneur, and he's a very, very bright young kid. But I think obviously he crossed the line in many different situations. No one in the group, except for Billy, had any access to any of the financial information. And he, I think in his mind, he created something that there was no turning back, that he had to go to the end and push us all to do the same thing. As you may all know, he's in prison now for 6 years. Ironically, he's there with Donald Trump's lawyer, who's now sharing a cabin with him, and then another wayward soul from the Jersey Shore named Situation. So you have these three people who are probably going to come out of prison.
So basically, he's better off now.
I got it. 3 free meals a day, a gym. I mean, not so bad. Yeah.
Start a festival, kids.
But I do admire Billy's, I did admire it more than I do now. His push, his vision, he worked tirelessly to try to create a dream and make it come true. Unfortunately, as you know, it didn't.
All right. So, okay. You go to the Bahamas, expecting your 1.7 million signed by, all right? Round of applause for the technician. So you go to the Bahamas expecting your 1.7 million signed or not, doesn't matter. You arrive there, you understand this thing cannot happen, right? What's your feeling? Or did you still have any belief at the start that you could pull it off? With all your 25 years of experience, was it possible, and when did you realize that it wasn't? Because this is pretty shocking. I mean, for a person with 25 years experience,
right,
to say that I have arrived and I still, I had arrived and I still decided to be part of it, and then it all collapsed for whatever reason, it's kind of, it feels strange to me that you didn't know at the start that it would just, go under.
I mean, I know I'm not Jesus, right? So
obviously
that was the
you're
first
not.
handicap, but my mind was constantly going back to the most famous music festival in the world called Woodstock, and people they always refer to Woodstock, the first big music festival. No one talks about the fact that there were over 1,000 cars on the highway that couldn't get off. No one talks about the drug overdoses, the murders. No one talks about no water. No one talks about any of those pieces to that most successful music festival. So I thought, you know what? If fucking Woodstock could go down as the most famous, successful music festival, fire can make it. And it propelled me every day. And believe me, every day I had 400 employees that would come to me, and we had a meeting in the morning, and a meeting at noon, and a meeting at dinner, and a meeting at midnight. After every meeting, they'd say, "Are you going to pull the plug?" And I said, "No, we are going to make this work." And I think, ironically, as many of you may know, a night before the music festival, a storm came in, blew over most of the tents. Everything was soaked. I thought, oh my gosh, this couldn't be happening. I had arranged, which wasn't really shown in the documentary, 1 week before, I spent $1 million and I chartered a cruise ship out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to bring over to house over 500 people. Of course, the storm came in. There wasn't a dock big enough in the Bahamas to put the ship on, so it had to be anchored offshore. And out of the 400 that the ship held, 300 were my employees. they couldn't get off the ship because it was too windy and none of the fucking launches could run. So I'm now stuck on this island with no employees for the day that all the guests arrive, and they're all out drinking margaritas on a cruise ship, sending me selfies. But what else could they do? I mean, they were stuck. And I'm in my Gucci shoes, making breakfast for 600. Wasn't pretty. Well, wasn't pretty.
Yeah, you could also argue that it was the fault of those guys who decided to do it on the island and didn't research the weather patterns on the Caribbean.
Yeah, absolutely.
No? I mean, you couldn't know that, so you cannot blame yourself for that.
I don't.
You did the best you could, but Mother Nature acts the way she or he acts there.
You can't control that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you think about Fyre Festival, probably one of the most incredible social media campaigns that's ever been launched, with the orange tile, and then with all the influencers and all the models, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, the irony is that it was the fucking cheese sandwich that went viral that brought the festival down.
But it's interesting because I wanted to talk to you about this just not only in the context of the Fyre Festival itself, but in a broader context. To me, it seemed that social media was the factor that made Fyre Festival. Literally, that's why they sold out.
Yes.
But it was also the vehicle that completely destroyed it with even less effort and with even less money. So can you just talk a little bit about the impact of social media on these kind of things and also on consumption of, I would call these products dream products, right, in general, overseas, because I think the situation there is completely different from what it is here. I mean, influencers can influence us to the point in a small market like Lithuania or the Baltics, but it's a completely different story there, because it only took 20, 30, 40, models to, and their concerted effort to make it happen. That's all it took.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously the campaign was quite successful. Obviously, the music festival sold out very quickly. For me, I was never a fan of social media. It just was not part of my daily routine, and I didn't really respect the world of social media.
Were you shocked at the success that campaign had?
Oh, absolutely.
Given your attitude towards the
absolutely, yeah. And then, of course, the festival was unraveling and things were falling apart all around me. But I knew that we had a stage that I had an Italian company build for $2 million. That was a beautiful stage right on the beach. I knew that we had built incredible day beds and furniture out of reclaimed wood from the beach. We had enough tequila to sink the entire planet. We had enough wine. We had, there were all these components. And guess what? Blink-182, Lil Yachty, Kanye West, they were all 10 minutes away in Nassau, a 10-minute plane ride away. And when the kids arrived, after I stopped the last jet, but we had 600 kids arrive, I couldn't let them come to the village during the day because it was such a mess, and I negotiated with a resort around the corner, and I said, listen, feed them, let them swim, let them drink, let them do whatever they want. And they just kept saying they wanted to come to the village. We finally let them in, but unfortunately, they were pretty bombed at that point. They were all fairly drunk. And I, of course, standing there trying to be the responsible person in the room, I saw two kids, and I said, you guys have had too much to drink. You need to eat something. But of course, the big tent wasn't ready yet for this big, formal, fancy dinner that was being served. The employee tent, which is where we were making sandwiches for the workers, I said to these two kids, go over, Max is the chef there, ask him for a sandwich. And they said, fine. Two more kids walked by. One girl threw up next to me. I said, listen, you need to eat something. I said, go over and ask Max for a sandwich. One of my employees backed over a water pipe. 1 minute later, it was a geyser going up 200 feet in the air. There was no water now for most of the festival. And I looked around, and there were 600 kids in line for this damn cheese sandwich. And I knew, because I could see them taking pictures of the fucking sandwich. And I knew. That was going to bring the festival down. Not the wet beds, not the tents that are upside down, that one cheese sandwich. And sure enough, that cheese sandwich went viral. Millions of, the thumbs up, thumbs down. I say, fuck you. I was like, really? The cheese sandwich? It was the cheese sandwich that took the damn thing down. I'm like, wait, is someone going to take a picture of the stage? Is someone going to take a picture of, no. And I mean, boom, at that point, every manager of all the talent canceled immediately. What? This luxury music festival, they're serving a cheese sandwich? I'm like, no, I have 40 chefs in the back making, they weren't stuck on the boat yet. They were making dinner.
At least it was organic, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's the irony. The styrofoam container and the cheese sandwich. That was the vision that went out to the world to say that fire was going down.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable.
Powerful social media.
Yeah.
Amazing. It can make you, it can break you in a second.
But now that's my platform, and that's why I've agreed to do this kind of thing, is that if I can help change the trajectory of social media a little bit and help drive positive change, with Gen Zs, with Gen Xs and millennials, and that's my job, to be sort of the older person in the room. And what's amazing is that in the last 2 weeks, I've had 5 television show offers. Pretty incredible. But it's basically based on the fact that I have this influence now, and how do we drive positive change? And yes, you'll probably learn I'm going to announce another music festival. And I know you might think I'm fucking crazy, and I probably am. But guess what? It's going to be a zero-waste music festival.
I'll come closer. But the fame and the influence that you have right now came with the documentary, right? I mean, probably you've learned something from the festival or the failure itself. Maybe you can share that with us a little bit. I understand maybe your motivation was just 1.7 million, that's it, but
no.
just to get it done. But probably there's some lessons there as well, right? From that failure.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, I am the biggest failure in pop culture today. And after Fire, yeah, it was a little complicated. The FBI followed me for a little while. I had to leave the country for 6 weeks. I had to sort of try to figure out a few different things. And my lawyer and my business partner said, can you make a commitment to us? I was hosting a very high-profile event in Switzerland, and I took all the employees out for dinner the night before this $20 million event, and somebody stood up and said, Andy, will you tell everybody a Fire Festival story? Now, nobody knew that I was involved with Fire. The next day, at this event of a size like this, most of the employees and the clients had turned against me. And whatever I had suggested that we do in this event, they changed. And when the head person came in and said, what is going on? Like, Andy had a plan. They're like, no, we had something to say. And I just looked at her and I winked. And she just said, I want everything Andy designed back here right now. Of course, it got back to my lawyer and my business partner what had happened, and they said, you will never mention Fire Festival ever again to anybody. And 1 week later, I woke up and I said, you can fuck yourselves. You know what? Like,
I'm going to Vilnius and I'm going to mention it.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the world that, you know what? It's okay to fail, right? People fail. I mean, I had 25 years of successes. Nobody knows about them. My one big failure they know about. How do you flip that around, right? We fail every day at shit, but no one wants to talk about it. I'm like, well, yeah, I was going to suck this big dick to fix this failure. And what's the point of the discussion? I'm not suggesting all of you do that, maybe a couple, but...
that's a metaphor, kids. That's a metaphor.
But I am suggesting, I mean, my memes, it's all...
It's not exactly that thing with a lot of blood and skin on it. That D word can be a bunch of other things.
Well,
like
it's about taking one for the team, and it's about going the extra mile, and it's about, with you young kids today with startups, yeah, you're going to have to do a bunch of stuff that you never dreamed of doing. But at the end of the day, if your heart is in it and you're passionate about it, sometimes you just need to do something that you may never want to tell anybody and you may never do again. But it's not to the extreme that I went to. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I got into a lot of trouble. I got a call from Netflix 1 week after the documentary came out. By the way, the documentary was viewed in over 22 million homes in the first 30 days. You imagine? Now it's been viewed into 58 million homes. It's the most popular documentary in history. I agreed to do the documentary because I said, no one watches documentaries and they never make any money. And here I am.
You were so wrong.
So Netflix calls, they said, Andy, we have a problem. Where are you? I said, I'm in LA. And they said, can you come to Universal Studios today? And I said, sure, what's going on? And they said, well, the LGBTQ community is really upset with you. And I said, what? What have I done? They're like, well, you didn't press sexual harassment charges against Billy and the festival. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm gay. And it wasn't like he said, go find 9 vaginas and sleep with them. Like, that would be a problem.
That would be overstepping the line.
One blowjob I could do. So I had to get, there I am, and I go into the studio, and I had to do 9 commercials. Hi, this is Andy King. If this happens to you in your workplace, it's not okay, and don't tolerate it. Take next. You imagine? I mean, oh yeah. But I had to demonstrate that it's not okay, right? And it isn't okay. But for me, it wasn't the worst thing that could happen. I mean, I said...
What is... Yeah, well, 9 vaginas,
yeah,
right?
The 9 vaginas. Like a little bit of a problem.
All right. All right. But actually, the fame and the influence that you have now is because of the documentary and a couple of sentences that you flipped out of your mouth. This is why, essentially, you're here. But to your point, people love, you know, America is great for celebrating success. We all know that. Probably the only country in the world where celebrating success is a cultural norm. It's accepted. There's, you know, in Lithuania, it's completely different. Like, if you celebrate your success, you're overstepping the line. It's like, yeah, taking one for the team, 9 vaginas, whatever. Same thing. But in America, it was different. But recently, celebrating failure has become more and more popular. I mean, even in Lithuania, you all know this. Small Planet Airlines went down, and they released like 40, 50-page document or a book, essentially, about what they've achieved and then how spectacularly they failed. And everybody clapped on social media about that. Now, 15 years ago, I would have killed myself for that, honestly. That's, you know, causes depression. But recently, it became not a norm, but celebrating failure became fashionable. And I do hope that all these people that Billy owned money, they made some money out of the documentary. I truly hope so, because it was very popular, as you said. But that piece of, I don't know, entertainment production is what made you famous. This gave you more success, or potentially will give you more success, than whatever you've done in your last 25 years, correct? Like, you will have 5 TV shows, not all of them, but 3, 4, whatever. You told me you will be hosting some more music festivals. You are big on climate change, or preventing it, or at least being responsible when organizing stuff for you and your clients. And you're becoming, you know, a very well-known celebrity among Z generation kids, right? So that failure turned into success for you personally, and probably you're the only one, sneaky bastard.
I'm the only one
who actually capitalized on that, right? Did you do it on purpose?
Oh my God. Which part? No.
All of it.
All of it.
That was a big plan. Right?
That is the irony that...
We will stop streaming right now. Nobody will know. Just the audience present here that paid a lot of money for the ticket. $4,000 each. They're all staying in the yacht.
Okay, good. Perfect. It did get leaked after the doc that was released, that that everybody thought that I had partnered with Chris Smith, the director, and Evian to create one of the biggest water bottle campaigns in the world. But no, none of this was, I would do it again, I guess. I wouldn't put anybody else in that position ever. It was the most stressful 6 weeks I've ever been through in my life. I would run these meetings every day with all these kids, and I would step outside of the meeting and I would burst into tears. And I'd come back inside and I'd say, I'm going to do this, I can do it, I'm going to do it. And, there's a lot of theories, but at the end of the day, Fire was never designed to be a scam, and it was designed to be the most luxurious music festival in the world. And you've never seen a group of committed employees in your life like this work tirelessly and hard to pull it off. And unfortunately, obviously, we didn't end up pulling it off. But I find now that just being the adult in the room, being a human being, I think maybe Lithuania is obviously a little bit different. In the United States, we struggle with a crazy president now who's a pathological liar, and he's a sociopath, and he...
Billy McFarlane.
Yeah, Billy just like Billy McFarlane. So the kids just, I will approach a lot of CEOs and say, what is it about your organization that is fixated on me? And they say, Andy, you're honest, and you're authentic, and you just say it. And, I think it's refreshing. I think that a lot of the younger generation today, the kids are best friends with their parents, but they're probably looking for some guidance and looking for the fact that I can say, you know what? Yeah, I fucked up, and it went down.
I don't agree with you on this one, but finish your thought. I'll explain to you why you didn't fuck up.
Okay.
You didn't fuck up because in the documentary, and this is my remark, my honest compliment to you, everybody in this documentary is complaining. Do you know what? Everybody who was on the team is complaining. And for those of you who haven't seen it, go and watch it on Netflix, and you will see. Everybody is complaining. You're the only person who is not complaining in that documentary. You're actually blaming yourself for things that you couldn't actually fix. Because in all honesty, if you watch it without any bias towards anybody, like you don't know anything about Fire, I'm just watching it now, 0 to 1:30 mark. You're the only person who is actually not complaining and is trying to take part of the blame for what happened, whilst you shouldn't be doing that, to be honest. So I don't think you fucked up. And I'm saying an F word because he started. I don't swear. But
I think a lot of my guilt comes.
But you shouldn't think that way.
I'm sure you're right. I think a big issue, one of the biggest issues in my mind is that the festival went down. We had 600 kids there. There was a massive situation with no security, no health care, and my lawyers called and said, listen, you have to get out of there. It's dangerous now. I said, no, I cannot leave. I'm not leaving. They said, Andy, everybody wants money. We had the Minister of Finance, the head of the Bahamian Tourism Board, the head of the University of the Bahamas. They were all there waiting for me to pay them. And it really wasn't me who was to pay them. It was Billy. But because I was the guy with the gray hair, they're like, Andy's going to fix this. And so the lawyers called and said, listen, we're sending a jet. Of course, Billy wasn't paying for it at that point because none of the credit cards would work. And they said, we're sending a jet, but it won't get there for 4 hours. And I'm like, 4 hours? God, what am I going to do? And I literally smuggled myself. I traded clothes with someone who was working for me, and I hid behind a porta potty, a urinal, and then I had somebody pick me up in a car, and I laid down in the back seat. They got me out of the village. I got to my house where I was renting, and I said to my assistant, she was a problem in herself, and I said, does anybody know where I live? And she said, no, nobody. Then she said, oh, wait, last weekend you were out for the afternoon working, and some government officials in the Bahamas used the house for a meeting. I said, they all know where I live now, all of them. Well, long story short, I laid down in the back of a pickup truck with branches over me for 2 hours. They drove me to the airport, but there were so many police at the airport waiting that we parked in the woods. Finally, the jet came as the sun was setting. The truck raced me out onto the runway. I jumped out of the back of the truck. I had 2 security guards with me. They pushed me into the plane. They slammed the door, and I just screamed at the pilot, "Go, go, go." It's like a movie. Well, it is a movie. And and it wasn't until I felt the wheels come off of that runway that I was safe. And I felt really, really guilty that I had left everybody behind. Everybody. But there wasn't, at that point, obviously, anything I could do. And that's one of my biggest things now, is that I've been working tirelessly with these GoFundMes, and I've been paying back everybody in the Bahamas that we owe money to. So we owed Marianne, you might all know, the woman who made all the food for us, for a couple months, and so we owed her $120,000. She's now gotten $280,000, which is great. And now I'm working hard on trying to pay back the 400 laborers. I think I've raised $100,000 so far, looking to raise $400,000. And slowly but surely. Thank you.
Yeah, I was while you were clapping, I just came up with a business idea. We have to come up with some stupid music festival, and they then ask this guy to bail us out.
But
so you're too kind.
I'm a little kind, but you guys would come to a music festival now that was zero waste, and that I want to highlight young people like you doing amazing things all around the world. Young musicians, young chefs, young designers, young tech people, startups, and I feel like my job is to try to help inspire people to do the right thing today.
Great. Now you already started this transition into what is Andy doing now, right? So can you talk to the audience here about what you're busy with these days? Because obviously you do a lot of talks. There will be probably in a year's time this genre of failed startups or failed events will take off, and there will be more documentaries on Netflix about failures, and this genre will be a staple probably in the entertainment. Your talking arrangements will go down in numbers. What are your plans? What are you doing? What are you doing now besides those 5 shows that you may or may not be doing? What is on your mind today besides getting to London or wherever you're going in 2 days?
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. Okay.
I own a farm, which is sort of crazy, and
everybody in Lithuania owns a farm. So
okay, there you go. Perfect.
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy.
You're at home here.
And I'm trying to spend a little bit more attention to the farm right now. We grow hay at the farm, and we're in the process of converting to hemp, and looking at doing a lot of work in the CBD world, which is kind of fun. I obviously am doing a ton of speaking engagements, but the show piece is important because the main concept for the big show will be the building of the next music festival, and it will be outlining how do you do it right.
So basically it's a reality TV kind of thing where
following me.
Where the cameras are following you, and you swear at people.
We find the location, we build the team, and then we start.
You cannot have a stage here. It's going to be raining. It happened once in the Bahamas.
Oh, I mean, shit happens with these big things. So it will be kind of like the behind the scenes of building the festival. There's another show that I'll be hosting dinners around the world. I'm launching a podcast called Mouthwash. There's a series of different things that we're looking at right now, which is kind of fun. And hopefully each one of these things, I'm going to be able to inspire people in the proper directions as far as social and environmental impact, and hopefully highlighting a lot of great people in the world doing amazing things.
Great. Let's have a round of applause. This was a great transition and to modern day Andy. Any plans for Europe, or are you mostly focused on America? Do you go international, or is it just this mindset that once you're big in America, you're going to just stay there because everybody wants to break in there? Anything in Africa, Europe? Lithuania, Africa, Lithuania, same thing. We have plenty of farms here.
Yeah, a little something in Africa is coming up, which will be pretty cool, a festival. I know. Do you think I could get away from this? No. But you know that if I have one more failure, I'm completely done. So I'm walking the tightrope right now. I'm going to be appearing in Scotland this summer for the film festival. I'll be in London doing a whole series there, hosting a festival in southern England. It's amazing where people reach out now and say, because of my failure, can you work with our team to kind of help us to make sure that we don't become you? I'm like, oh, okay, thanks, yeah. That's my job now.
Well, the big question is, will they listen?
Are you guys listening? A little, yeah.
Well, is anybody organizing a festival anytime soon? Oh, one of them is organizing a festival. Probably Zero Waste Festival, right? Let's hope so. Zero Waste Festival.
But you think of music festivals today, and they are so wasteful, and it's amazing. And
yeah, I'm playing a couple of these this year. I'm gonna write you a report about how it's organized in Lithuania.
Look around, but how hard is it to highlight local farmers and local young people and chefs and musicians, and how hard is it to kind of insert all these really cool components where you have an audience of young people that are coming to, you know, they're going to get fucked up and they're going to do some drugs and smoke some pot and drink a lot.
Yeah, it's better if they do local produce, right?
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully, you know, with the concept now of, you know, making these festivals more inspiring, focusing on climate change, how do you drive positive change? Hopefully that's going to be a big part of moving forward what I'm going to be able to help with as far as these festivals and shows are concerned. All
right. Can you tell us, just to end this discussion because we don't have much time, can you tell us where we can follow you and whether we can have any access to your projects out of Europe? Where can we find you besides social media?
Besides social media. On the social media piece, you can follow me on The Real Andy King on Instagram, or I guess on Twitter too. Outside of social media, obviously the show is going to be the biggest thing, and when we make, hopefully the announcement will be made in the next 60 days of where the first music festival will be held. It'll be held probably in 1 year, which is what I'm suggesting. Most festival builders understand that you can't build a festival in 6 weeks, that probably 9 months to a year is probably the right time frame. Obviously getting the proper sponsorship is a smart thing. I met with a pretty major brand last week who's looking to have me host the halftime show of one of the largest sporting events in the world this coming year, and I agreed that I would do it as long as we could make it zero waste, which they're excited about. I think a lot of this will be leaked to the press in the next 60 days, so it's kind of exciting.
Great. Well, let's thank Andy for coming all the way from failed Bahamas in New York City.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for your insights and good luck on your